It pays to discover.
Hi, it's Scout Flight 148, not 200, solid or not safe. Thank you, 1 clear. You need 14 clear. You 2, he's the third last.
Of all the things around your house that need batteries, there's one thing that needs a good, fresh battery most of all. See your Allstate agent for a free home fire safety brochure. And please, check the battery in your smoke detector often.
Look at me, enjoying a crisp red apple. Even with my dentures, thanks to Super Poli-Grip.
Super Poli-Grip holds so tight, many denture wearers can enjoy more of their favorite foods.
Even apples.
Super Poli-Grip.
What if you could get the fiber you need for regularity in a crisp, delicious wafer? Well, now you can. Metamucil wafers. All the effectiveness of Metamucil. And it tastes like a cookie. Metamucil wafers.
On Focus this evening, our society, actually 3 societies. Big changes are coming for Americans, Canadians, and Mexicans with the agreement this week on a North American free trade area. The agreement will create a big marketplace with 360 million people. Most trade barriers and tariffs will be removed over the next 15 years, lowering consumer prices. The investment capital and technology of the United States and Canada will be joined with the cheaper labor of Mexico. President Carlos Salinas de Gortari of Mexico has pushed hard to remove the economic and psychological barriers Mexico has maintained against the United States. This week, he toured his country selling the new agreement. In Hermosillo, we talked about what free trade would mean for people on both sides of the border. What do you say to the workers in the United States, in Michigan, Ohio, who may be losing their jobs and seeing those jobs move to Mexico because labor here is so much cheaper?
Well, the first question is, what do I say to Mexican workers? And I tell them that with the agreement, they will not have to migrate north to the U.S. looking for jobs, but instead, they will be able to find them in Mexico. So you can see that with the agreement, Mexican workers will not compete with U.S. workers within the United States. That's the first fact. We are talking about exporting goods and not people. Second, workers in the U.S., as the economists in that country have shown, with or without the agreement, will have to adjust their technologies, their productive organizations, and therefore to be able to compete not with Mexico, but with countries with very high wages like Japan or Germany. And by getting together Mexico, the US, and Canada, we will be able to compete better precisely with those countries.
There's no question that a certain number of Americans, perhaps a great number, are going to lose their jobs because companies will come to Mexico to set up their plants.
It's a fact, true, but not of the magnitude that could involve very many people.
Many Americans look at this agreement and they say, hey, it sounds great, but environment. Tremendous pollution problems in Mexico along the border. Standards are non-existent or nowhere near what we have in the United States. In a way, that's an unfair advantage for Mexico. What are you going to do about it?
We are committed to a clean environment. We do not want industries that pollute the environment. We will not give facilities to industries that have technologies which harm the environment.
When we talk about this free trade agreement, it's more than trade, it's more than economics. You're talking about changing attitudes.
We are neighbors. Geography and history put us together, and we have to live with that. It has not been easy for us Mexicans. A Mexican president used to say, poor Mexico, so far from God and so close to the U.S. Well, we've had to reverse that attitude. We do not forget our past, but there are already more than 10 million Mexicans living in the U.S. That's a reality. And living in that reality, I decided that we must have a different relationship with the U.S.
Are we see the world dividing up into trading blocks along geographic lines? The Europeans, North America, and across the Pacific, Asia. That this is the new map of the world?
That's a risk, and we must avoid it. Because closed trading blocks would be the prelude to trading wars. And that would be the worst outcome of the 90s.
President Salinas of Mexico, and we'll have more news as we continue.
Either you give your customers reliable service or somebody else will.
We chose AT&T because our 800 service is our front door. If it shuts down, we shut down.
AT&T has the most reliable 800 service. It's guaranteed by the 800 assurance policy, and it's designed so that more calls get through.
To us, a single 800 call could be worth thousands of dollars.
When you consider that every call is a customer, why would you want anything less than AT&T?
AT&T 800 service, because every call is a customer.
This itch, what can stop it fast?
You need lightning fast Lanacane. Lanacane starts working in a flash to cool, soothe, stop the itch. And Lanacane cream actually works on contact with the itch nerves that cause every itch. Benadryl can't. Cordaid can't. Cortisone 10 can't.
The itch is all gone, and so fast.
For the fastest way to stop every itch, get lightning fast Lanacane.
In this election year, their candidates will talk about controlling the budget. Our running mates, meanwhile, have put these words into motion. Look at Jenna's track record and Basat's ability to carry a large constituency. And you'll be convinced that they represent the right values.
See a participating dealer for details and ride in the candidate of your choice.
You really think naphtha can be replaced with a non-flammable solvent?
In 1929, she was the only woman and the only PhD chemist in the physics lab. But over the years, she was responsible for 29 different patents.
Hello, I'm Sylvia Stacer.
Dr. Stacer created a new career path for women and for her company. The same company that leads the nation in patents granted to women over the last decade. We think Dr. Stacer would be pleased.
Dow lets you do great things.
Time now to look at some of the stories that made news this past week. A sign of better relations between the United States and the new government of Israel. President Bush and Prime Minister Rabin announced agreement on $10 billion in American loan guarantees. James Baker went to the rescue of his old friend George Bush, stepping aside as Secretary of State to become White House Chief of Staff and shape up the president's re-election campaign. Good news for people who want to buy a home. The average interest rate for a 30-year mortgage is below 8% for the first time in 19 years. But with a sluggish economy, demand for mortgages is weak. From Colombia, a first look at the prison home of Pablo Escobar, who was living in high style before he escaped. This week, American authorities charged him with bombing a Colombian jetliner that killed 110 people, including 2 Americans. And at the White House, an official welcome home for members of the U.S. Olympic team. Other Olympic footnotes: South Africa's first integrated team returned home to a rousing airport welcome. The Mexican government ordered an investigation into why its team earned only 1 medal at the Games. And what about the athletes of the former Soviet Union? Jim Maceda has their story.
Forget the fanfares or ticker tape parades. Only friends and family showed up at Moscow's International Airport to greet a tired bunch of Olympians. Vitaly Cherba may have won 6 gold medals, but back in the former USSR, he was just another mortal, with no baggage handlers and a 4-hour wait at customs. Other members of the unified team, who swept the medals race in Barcelona with 112, were met by the same indifference. Clearly, the Olympic stars had lost their glitter. Andrei Belofostov brought home the bronze with the rest of his water polo team. In the old days, that meant his own car and large apartment, perks for the Soviet elite. Today, the perks are gone. He lives in a hostel, feels ashamed and broke.
Life is so bad here that people only have time to think about themselves, not about how to pay those who defend the honor of their country.
But which country? The unified team combined the talents of 12 former Soviet republics. Now they're all independent states. An Olympic flag replaced the hammer and sickle. With the Soviet sports machine in pieces, the old republics must start from scratch. And national heroes are history. Jim Maceda, NBC News, Moscow.
And I'll be back with some final thoughts.
Every Kraft single is made from 5 ounces of milk. How did they do that?
Well, you take a slice and you fold it like this. You pour in the milk, and then, ta-da!
Kraft singles are made from 5 ounces of milk. That's why they taste better than imitation cheese, made mostly with oil and water.
A house.
Milk makes every single Kraft single taste better. Look for Kraft Light singles, too.
I used to take aspirin to relieve minor arthritis pain until my doctor told me one Advil is as effective as 2 regular aspirin and is gentler to my stomach. For my pain, I prefer Advil. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
I'd like to talk to you about an invisible problem. The invisible bacteria that cause denture odor. Fortunately, antibacterial Fixodent kills those odor-causing bacteria for clean, fresh dentures.
Antibacterial Fixodent.
Ian, it's Sky Flight 148, not seen Avenue, Paladin, not seen. Thank you, 1 clear. You need 14 clear. You 2 is 30,
Of all the things around your house that need batteries, there's one thing that needs a good, fresh battery most of all. See your Allstate agent for a free home fire safety brochure. And please, check the battery in your smoke detector often.
In art, taste is subjective, but in life, good taste is well defined. Fancy Feast gourmet cat food. Exceptionally moist and delicious. Fancy Feast. Good taste is easy to recognize.
And finally this evening, 2 presidents, George Bush and Carlos Salinas of Mexico, from whom we heard earlier this evening. What are the differences between them? Well, here's one. This coming week, Mr. Bush will be renominated by his party and formally start his re-election campaign. President Salinas, however, does not face that. By law, he is limited to 1 term as president, 6 years, and then he's out. There are, of course, other differences between our 2 systems. Mexico doesn't have divided government. The president there isn't feuding with Congress. In fact, one party in Mexico controls just about everything. But the fact that a president is limited to 1 term to make his mark can actually expand his freedom to act, to make the tough decisions that may not be popular. President Salinas has used that freedom to make some important reforms, including the free trade agreement with all of North America. Now, George Bush supports the agreement too, but he has to be more careful in pushing it because of his re-election concerns. So, is a 1-term, 6-year presidency better than what we have? It depends in whose hands the power is placed, of course. But right now, south of our border, there's a good example of how a reform president who knows how to lead can lead, can give his country a sense of direction. And one big reason is that he doesn't have to worry about getting re-elected. And that's our look at our world this day. We'll be back tomorrow night. I'm Garrick Utley. Good night for all of us at NBC News.
Coming up next from News Center 13, at first he said he was innocent. Now a Story County man is ready to plead guilty to his wife's murder.
Minneapolis police say they are close to making an arrest in the Kevin Kelly murder case.
And the population of Boone, Iowa swells by 2,000 this weekend. We'll explain.
Jerry says another cold one tonight, and Pat with preseason football and the PGA. All next on the news at 6.
Look at these red marks. These old glasses do nothing but pinch. They're a pain.
You don't have to put up with glasses that don't fit anymore.
Now Lens Crafters brings you better fit for greater comfort. Lens Crafters glasses fit your snug points with features like new self-adjusting snug fit pads that flex to gently and securely hug your nose.
No more pinching. I never knew glasses could be this comfortable.
Lens Crafters, better fit for greater comfort. In about an hour.
Call Pizza Hut now for carryout all day, every day, and pick up a medium pepperoni pizza for just $5.99. Guaranteed to be ready in 10 minutes, or your next one's free.
Live from WHO TV 13, where the news comes first 24 hours a day. Scott Pope, Therese Thompson, Pat Paris with sports, and Jerry Reno with the weather. This is News Center 13 at 6.
He pleaded innocent to the murder of his wife. Now he's changing his story. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Stephen Sager says he will change his plea to guilty.
He's the Collins man charged with the stabbing death of his estranged wife back in June. Now, word of Sager's intentions to change his plea came this past week in a letter he sent to several local news agencies. In the letter, Sager says he never intended to kill his wife, Carol, and he's sorry. And he says he wants to avoid further emotional pain for all of those involved. News Center 13's Mary Mills has been following these latest developments in the case, and News Center 13 talked with residents of Sager's hometown today. Mary?
Well, Scott, I think at this point, residents of Collins would like nothing more than to put this terrible tragedy behind them. This latest development may help. When Stephen Sager made his first court appearance, he tearfully told the judge he never planned to kill his wife, that some of the court documents were wrong.
This thing isn't written up right. It's not the way I told the people it happened. I never wrote this up at all.
Sager, who's accused of repeatedly knifing his wife Carol at his Collins home, pleaded innocent to first-degree murder charges, but that could soon change. In a letter to news organizations, Sager says he wants to avoid further emotional pain for the people involved. He writes, "I owe the world an apology for the stabbing death of my wife, Carol Sager, in our home in the town of Collins. After a lot of consideration, I have decided to change my plea to guilty." Collins residents gathered for volleyball today were reluctant to talk about Sager, but the pastor who's counseled him says he's not surprised by the letter.
He's felt very unforgiving towards himself for what he's done. He's been very, in my presence, he's been in tears regarding the pain that he's caused Carol, his family, and his own family, and the shame that possibly has brought.
Now, Story County Attorney Mary Richards is said to be aware of the letter, but as of yet, she has not received official word of his change in plea. We should know more on that Monday, Scott.
All right, Mary Mills reporting for us. Thanks very much. Therese?
Minnesota authorities say they expect to make an arrest in the Kevin Kelly murder case sometime next week. Kelly, a former Iowa lawmaker, and his companion, Barbara Lund, were found shot to death in this Minnetonka home a week ago Thursday. Russell Lund Jr., Barbara's estranged husband, is the prime suspect. Lund is currently in the psychiatric wing of a Minneapolis hospital. A judge will decide what information in Lund's hospital files can be turned over to the investigators. Police say it could determine where Lund was at the time of the shootings. Well, a September 10th sentencing date has been set for a man accused of kidnapping two little girls from Charles City and leaving them in a dumpster some 50 miles away. 21-year-old Michael Klunder was pleaded guilty to 2 counts of third-degree kidnapping. Now, authorities say Klunder kidnapped the 3-year-old girls as they played outside their babysitter's home last December 16th. The girls were found a few hours later in a garbage bin near Northwood. Klunder now faces up to 20 years in prison.
A new state law is starting to pay dividends in the war on drugs. Phone taps authorized by the State Attorney General's office have led to the arrest of 3 Sioux City men suspected of operating a huge drug trafficking ring in northwest Iowa. The new law allows the AG's office to authorize the use of phone and wiretaps without permission from a federal court judge. The law passed the Iowa legislature in 1991, but has only been used occasionally since then. Well, negotiations continue at this hour to head off a strike by thousands of U.S. West communication workers. 38,000 U.S. West workers are threatening to go on strike if a new contract agreement isn't reached. The current contract expires at midnight tonight. 3 major issues stand in the way of a settlement: job security, wages, and pensions. Company officials say they are optimistic an agreement can be reached, but if a strike is called, they say phone service should not be affected.
Workers are gearing up for the Iowa State Fair, which is set to get underway next Thursday. You might not realize all the little things that have to be done to get ready for opening day, like painting footprints on the ground so fairgoers know where to stand to catch the Skytram, or putting a little spit and polish on the roller coaster. And what could the State Fair be without the concession stands? George Henry of Master Jack's Concessions tells us this is his 52nd State Fair. The Iowa State Fair actually opens next Thursday, the 20th. The fair runs through the 30th, and don't forget to visit our TV 13 stage for Live at 5, all during the fair. We're certainly not having State Fair-like weather right now. Jerry, where's all the heat and humidity?
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's out west. They've had record highs out there. I mean, 90s and 100s, all the way from Utah up to